The galaxy begged for protection, but humanity returned as surgeons, not saviors, armed with silence sharp enough to carve empires. When the Dominion fell, Terrans offered peace, but their knives remained clean, quiet, and waiting. Then the stars whispered back, not with war, but with a question: would you share the road? As new voices arrived from beyond known space, humanity answered not with dominance, but with Dawn Path, a bridge built of scars and songs. Now, even the void listens, and the galaxy learns that silence isn't weakness, it's a choice. Stay with us to find out how the story ends, and don't forget to subscribe. The galaxy had learned to whisper after dusk. For nearly 2 centuries, the spiral arms of the stellarium expanse had known only the soft hum of commerce and the crackle of diplomatic channels. The Grand Meridian trade spine glowed with the radiance of free-flying freighters. Border citadels became museums instead of fortresses. Entire sectors forgot the taste of evacuation alarms. Children on 200 worlds grew up believing that war was a fossil, something their great-grandparents kept in history cubes to frighten them into finishing their vegetables. All of that belief shattered on the 83rd rotational of the common calendar, exactly 11 seconds past midnight Galactic Central Time, when the first pulse screamed through the hyperrelay network: Dominion incoming. Vector unknown. Mass signature extreme. At first the warning felt like a prank, a bit of jitter in an aging sensor grid. But as pending confirmations cascaded from independent arrays, the smile drained from every comm officer's face. A gravitational bow wave, bigger than anything recorded since the binary exodus, was carving its way through subspace. Whatever birthed that wake was accelerating, and it was aiming straight for the core ward lattice, the civilized heart of known space. 5 minutes later, the emergency beacon at Relay Kappa 4 went dark. It did not explode. It did not broadcast a distress code. One frame the Citadel was there, an indestructible knot of obsidian alloy the size of a moon. The next frame it was missing, as though the universe had revised its own blueprints while nobody was looking. By the time Sector Intelligence finished replaying the footage, 3 more relays disappeared. That was the night every security director remembered how to panic. The enemy called itself the Sinvati Dominion, or rather, the translation algorithms supplied that name. No living diplomat had heard a Sinvati voice. Every communique issued from them arrived as sterile text and a single image, an infinity symbol rendered in blood-red static. The introduction was concise. We are Reclamation. You occupy former Sinvati ground. Return what is ours or be returned dash. There were no hails for discussion. No lists of demands. Just coordinates for planetary capitals and a timeline counted in hours, not days. In the floating chambers of the Galactic Concord, representatives of 48 species gathered beneath storm-gray holograms that showed the Dominion fleet sweeping across projection grids like a plague of comets. Hundreds, thousands of war husks forged from dull crimson alloy marched in precise phalanxes, each longer than a capital city, each bristling with energy lances that flickered like controlled supernovas. Some hulls were cracked open to vacuum, ancient and skeletal, yet still pulsing with murderous intent. Viceroy Tarish of the Lumian Pact found his voice first. This is an extinction-class armada. Our standing forces cannot blunt that tide, let alone stop it. The hall devolved into static. Chitinous delegates clacked mandibles. Avian envoys hissed. Synthetic minds rattled off casualty models that produced more zeros than any sane ledger could display. Someone muttered the inevitable question: where are the humans? Humanity, the latecomer species that upset every war equation the Expanse had ever written, had been conspicuously silent. After the Celadon Accords, Earth withdrew most of its frontline fleets, opting instead for distributed peacekeeping initiatives. To outsiders that meant patrol craft, humanitarian barges. Medics in gray jumpsuits. What it meant to anyone who'd bothered reading deeper was that humans had gone off-grid, pouring their defense budget into projects nobody could audit. Now, in the Concord's hour of terror, the Terran delegation seat remained empty, save for a lone data tablet blinking with an unread message. Marshal Prime Corps of the Drash Confederacy stabbed a talon toward the vacant chair. They abandoned us. The tablet chimed in response, as if offended. Light years away, hidden in quantum occlusion at the dark heart of the Vesper Halo, a vault opened that no map acknowledged. It was a scar across space-time, a hangar carved into negative dimensions, the Silent Forge. Inside, machines older than any colony's charter unfurled. Armor plates glided over skeletal frameworks. Antimatter hearts shivered awake, rail spines longer than orbital elevators aligned with subatom-perfect precision. High above the assembly line, a single human woman regarded the awakening giants. Commander Naomi Rourke, director of Project Harbinger, whispered to her adjutant. Cue the null array ignition. No running lights, no transponder. Yes, ma'am. Weapon systems. Cold until my mark. We're not here to start a fire. We're here to remove an empire. 39 dreadnoughts, matte black and moon-sized, drifted from their cradles. The forge sealed behind them, leaving no trace it had ever existed. They vanished into FTL vectors too exotic for Concord NAV computers to plot. While the Concorde scrambled, the Dominion swept forward unchecked. Their spear had crushed the fortified moon of Vanaker in 93 seconds. No bombardment, Just a silent flash, and the moon's mass scattered as particulate gas, absorbed by some gravitational siphon technology the Dominion seemed to wield like a casual shrug. Across the date net, a single meme spawned and spread with viral fury. Pray the humans are still angry. They did not have to pray long. At coordinate 8:15 Theta, a lonely stretch of interstellar nothing, the lead Dominion flotilla encountered shadows. Exactly 14 minutes after real space insertion, 3 Dominion dreadhusks suffered simultaneous system overheat. Internal scans revealed no saboteurs, no foreign code, just phantom heat spikes that boiled reactor cores until they collapsed. 18 seconds later, the flotilla's command carrier received a wideband audio burst. You stepped into the dark. The dark remembers everything you stole. Then silence. Admiral Crych ordered a graviton mine sphere. The mines armed and detonated against nothing. Yet each blast folded back, stripping Dominion hulls like paper banners in a storm. Retreat vectors jammed by a recursive prime encryption spelled one word in Terran standard. Stay. Back in Concorde space, the empty Terran seat flickered. The data tablet finally displayed its message. You brought fleets. We brought silence. Commander Rourke watched the first engagement logs stream across the Harbinger slate. Casualty tally, Dominion husks, 7 destroyed, 4 crippled. Human losses 0. She exhaled. Phase 1 complete. Begin spectral dead zone cascade. Ma'am, that will blind every civilian network in contested sectors. Blindness is temporary, she said. Extinction isn't. On Trinaxis 3, Dominion shock pods fell. Biomechanical titans unfolded. A Terran interceptor wing of Whisper-class fighters appeared from rippling air. 43 seconds later the constructs lay dismantled, reactors surgically removed, soil unburned. Children of Trinaxis would recall the morning shadows that saved their sunrise. Admiral Crych, reviewing planetfall failures, tapped the Dominion overmind for guidance. The AI replied. Human directive, unknown. Risk, terminal. Recommended action, seek negotiation. Crych cut the link just as every console scrolled. Negotiation granted. Surrender nodes in 30 minutes. Otherwise, we cut deeper. Across forums and rumor feeds, tales of Terran dark ships exploded. Earth remained silent, but in that silence the galaxy heard thunder. Interlude, the silence grows louder. On Frostring Corsasby, Dominion biosiphons drilled superionic oceans. Terran Corvette TNS Quietus Dove unfolded and revealed a cavity of raw event horizon physics. It swallowed the siphon whole, re-emerged without scorching tundra, and left behind only the phrase prototype gravitational dentistry, the best-selling merch slogan by sundown. Operation Glassveil deployed 12 Dominion Stellarum Crucis. An eclipse-scale shadow, later tagged Arc 0, opened like a violet coal, inhaled their weapon lattices, and vanished. The battle was archived as Class Omega Anomaly. Witnesses were quarantined for fear of spreading despair. Ambassador Lena Kavinsky finally faced the Concorde. Earth will keep the night from your doors until you learn how to lock them yourselves. Some called it arrogance, most called it hope. Dominion Scout Shard of Dread linked to a Terran relay buoy and heard children laughing. It read, "We are the children who stopped being afraid." Minutes later, the frigate jumped into its own star. Inside Harbinger 1, Commander Rourke pointed at 3 blinking beacons, the Triarch Forge worlds. We cut them. The Dominion bleeds out of options. Rules of engagement. Silent. Surgical. Compassionate where possible. Terrible where required. On Rexus Prime, Dominion foundries woke to produce food instead of munitions, their root command hard-patched with a Terran law. First, do no tyranny. Admiral Crych wept, mercy he could not reciprocate. Worlds lit their night sides in sapphire. Children drew drone-like messages. Thank you. Keep watching. At the Halo's edge, Crych met Rourke in a weapons-cold shuttle. What are you? Conquerors. Doctors, she said. The galaxy is sick. We cut away infection. And after the sickness is gone? Then we put the knives away and teach everyone how to wash their hands. Outside the viewport, Arc 0 drifted like an eclipsed dawn, waiting. Admiral Crych returned to the desolation crowned beneath a silence so complete the deck crew might have thought their lord absent. He walked straight to the war sanctum, keyed a private cipher, and dismissed every officer who tried to follow. The door sealed behind him, meeting edges fusing in carbon black glow, the Senvadi gesture for total isolation. A single command node lit the room, its screen still showing Naomi Rourke's last words, teach everyone how to wash their hands. Crych had never washed anything in his life. Dominion nobility were born to shining halls already scrubbed by subservient guilds. Yet he understood the metaphor with a pang of something unnameable, perhaps envy. Until that moment he believed power the truest contagion. Now a human offered a cleansing he did not know how to request. He disabled every internal recorder, folded all 4 arms across his crimson cuirass, and allowed himself 1 full minute to experience fear. When the minute expired, he reopened channels, this time not to the Overmind but to the Harkabal, a shadow quorum rumored to override the Dominion's public hierarchy whenever failure loomed. Crych had never used their code until tonight. His message was bleakly simple. The Terrans will not stop at surrender. They carve ideology. Directive suggested, Apotheosis Spiral. The spiral was myth, a doomsday bid that would harvest 30 inhabited systems, feed their suns into a singularity cannon, and fling a starbreaker bolt along the Concorde axis. An extinction stroke so vast it promised victory by removing witnesses as thoroughly as enemies. CRYDH sent the code anyway. No reply came. The Harkabal, it seemed, had gone silent like every other terror before Terran shadows. Far across the stellar web on orbital platform Astra Minor Dock 94, Commander Naomi Rourke stood before a hololith of Dominion space now riddled with white gaps, the symbolic color her analysts used for pacified by surgical deterrence. Yet ghosted in the periphery sat crimson triangles blinking with fresh telemetry, rogue Dominion splinter cadres, unaccounted fleet shards, and the handful of warclades not answering CRYDH's tenuous recall. Her ops director, Lieutenant Colonel Aldo Zhu, rotated the display. We're choking the beast, but it's shedding teeth in every direction. Wild hits on civilian routes, frontier raids, orbital kidnappings, anything to broadcast relevance. Rourke rubbed her eyes. She had slept 89 minutes in 3 days, a personal excess by Harbinger standards. Terrorists in red capes still scare children. We can't let those broadcasts stand. Prioritize interdiction of splinters. Shift whisper squadrons into distributed relay haunts. Zhu gave half a grin. Silent policing the loud. Almost poetic. It's Triov, Rourke said. The biggest infection is arrogance. And that one's about to metastasize somewhere worse than Dominion territory. Zhu frowned. You think the Concorde will try to adopt our tech? They've already started, she answered, sharing a classified courier ping. Shards of Terran null array code had been intercepted by an internal Concorde bureau dubbed Crown Shield. If their Black Lab alchemists crack that matrix without proper handling, they'll punch holes in dimensional membranes we spent 50 years sewing shut. Recommendation? Containment. And diplomacy, if we can still spell the word. Diplomacy in Concorde Central had never resembled anything as delicate as its textbooks claimed. But tonight, in the Council's grand dais, the mood tipped from chaos into hysteria. News of Rourke's clandestine meeting leaked within hours. Hypercasts swarmed with pundits furious that humanity negotiated without a Concorde mandate. Protest columns filled the hall's balconies, some waving banners of gratitude, others depicting humans as specters draped in binary chains. At the podium stood Prime Orator Nethsel, an amphibious stateswoman whose silver throat fans fluttered when agitated. They fluttered now. If Earth chooses vigilante hegemony, she barked, then let Earth face sanction. Roars followed. Only Ambassador Lena Kavinsky remained unmoved. She rose from her seat, palms exposed in the Terran signal for peaceful intent, and keyed her mic. Use sanction shadows, she said, voice calm. We'll send you a flashlight catalog. The retort drew laughter from supportive galleries, but rage from Crown Shield sympathizers. Someone hurled a shard glass protest sigil. It shattered against Kavinsky's podium, spraying iridescent dust. Security mechs pivoted rail stalks, charging stun webs. Kavinsky lifted a single eyebrow. Another Terran signal. This is your courtesy warning. Overhead, holoprisms flickered, and a panoramic feed from an outer system filled every projection plane. The feed showed a Dominion rogue cruiser terrorizing the mining colony Halcyon Sagiti, weak shuttles scattering or rigs venting fire. As colonists screamed, a Whisper-class wing unfolded mid-void, uncoiled a lancing sweep of microwave interference, and surgically sliced the cruiser's spike guns without rupturing its hull. 90 seconds later, Dominion raiders floated in disabled pods. No colonist was harmed. Mining lights flickered back on. Kavinsky let the footage loop once, twice, then spoke with flint-edge softness. That is hegemony? No, that is medicine. You asked for safety. We provided. Prime Nethsel's fans drooped, but she lashed back. And coin? What hidden price will humanity levy? No price, said Kavinsky. But there is a bill, accountability. When you repay that, when you swear never again to barter fear, we will dissolve Harbinger Command and return to research, art, and stargazing. A hush fell. Even cynical delegates heard the exhaustion behind the promise. It sounded, unsettlingly, like sincerity. Under the gunmetal skies of Valky's air, Crown Shield's Axiom cell proceeded regardless. Deep in a geology lab repurposed as a covert foundry, technicians had succeeded in bootstrapping a fragment of Terran null array code onto a prototype cruiser hull, the Doctrine Wraith. Their leader, Dr. Harl Grissom, was an exiled quantum metallurgist whose obsession with symmetrical deterrence bordered on zealotry. Grissom watched the hull shimmer, one moment matte silver, the next devouring all light. At last, he whispered, parity. He ignored the fail-safe warnings. Unstable substrate, cosmic imprint deviation. Grissom believed humanity exaggerated the dangers to keep monopoly. When the null array reached 38% integration, the crucible floor buckled. Gravity metrics spiked. Loose tools orbited the hull like anxious comets. Then a chirp, small, almost polite. Issued from the main console. Vector breach detected. Something answered from the other side of reality. Labor cams recorded the lab folding inward, one-dimensional layer at a time, like a paper lantern collapsing, edges tucking between impossible seams. The feed cut out, leaving only a ripple and tachyon chatter that spread across subspace like oil across water. Rourke saw the ripple half a galaxy away. Crown Shield just tore a veil, she said. We've got a newborn singular pocket in Valky's orbit. Worst case, it blossoms into a scar rift. Best, it dumps a fragment of whatever lives beyond. She ordered Harbinger fleet to immediate intercept. The scar rift began as a violet fissure, 9 kilometers long, blooming above Valky's air. Concord traffic control panicked. Medico drones reported static hallucinations among civilians, visions of mirrored halls, lungs filling with clockwork dust, or endless corridors lined with upside-down constellations. Whatever seeped from the fissure wasn't physical, not yet. It was information wearing the mask of nightmare. Harbinger dreadnoughts Phantom Lily and Cold Embrace reached orbit first. They ignited gravitic fenestration webbing, weaving a cage of overlapping micro-event horizons around the fissure. On the planet below, people felt a sudden weightlessness, as though someone had turned gravity down 2 notches. Commander Rourke patched into global broadcast. Citizens of Valky's air, remain indoors. This is a surgical dimensional quarantine. You are not under attack. Meanwhile, Strike Team Eidolon Blue, 12 operators clad in adaptive duskweave, breached the compromised Crown Shield vault. They found only contorted architecture, door frames spiraled into Mobius loops, computer stacks sang lullabies and forgotten Morse. Harl Grissom floated mid-corridor, eyes glazed, whispering, "We found the mirror found us," over and over. The null array fragment itself hung in the central chamber, spinning like a coin tossed by no hand. Eidolon's sensors reported it overriding local physics 1 angstrom at a time. Any conventional containment would fail. Operator Commander Siobhan Mares radioed Rourke. Object self-containing via recursion. Safe extraction impossible. Recommend Phoenix protocol. Phoenix was Harbinger's harshest remedy. Burn the infection with disciplined oblivion, then seed new matter where reality frayed. It would sterilize half the facility and risk tremors and planetary crust. But if Eidolon failed, the scar might flower into a galaxy-wide bleed. Rourke closed her eyes. Approved. Initiate at your discretion. Mares replied, understood. We'll sing them home. Inside the vault, Eidolon ignited lattice charges, tiny spools of negative mass that collapse, not explode. Rooms folded, heat flashed, and the null array fragment compressed in a white-hot gasp. The fissure overhead shrieked, narrowed, blistered, and snapped shut like a wounded eye. On the surface, gravity steadied. The nightmares stopped. Rourke's comms filled with medical triage updates, minimal casualties, 1 structural quake, stabilizing. She exhaled, throat raw. Patcha channeled the Concord Central. They need to see why monopoly isn't tyranny, it's stewardship. Days later, in the council dais, Kavinsky replayed Valky's footage. Gasps rippled. Even Prime Nethcell covered her throat fans. The message was clear. In untrained hands, Terran tools were demons. A rust-skinned senator from the Krioke Tribune spoke shakily. Ambassador Kavinsky, what guarantee have we that Earth itself remains stable? What if your own vault tears open? Kavinsky answered not with rhetoric but with data, a scroll of Terran internal doctrine, signed by every major head of state. The Harbinger Mandate. No weapon shall exist without an equal protocol of rescue. No invention shall cross the veil unless its creators can cross back bearing aid. No monopoly shall endure 1 hour beyond the moment another polity demonstrates safe stewardship. No tyrant shall sleep quietly again. She concluded, humanity wrote these laws in the ashes of our first contact tragedies. They bind us harder than any treaty you could draft. But we will not trade them for applause. Silence lingered. The galaxy began, cautiously, to believe her. Belief faltered again when Dominion splinter group Red Cathedra struck the luxury moon station Seraph Belt, a playground for Concord elite. Red Cathedra broadcast a hostage manifesto. Return Admiral CRYDH, yield Arc 0 schematics, withdraw Terran fleets, or we open every observation deck to vacuum. 26,000 civilians captured, including invoice families. Timers ticked. Harbinger response. For Whisper Wings, a pair of pulse night boarding frigates, and, unseen, a single Spectre node, nano-draped relay able to puppet local gravity. At D-3 minutes, the station's outer shell rippled, not breached but phased. Every Red Cathedra weapon found itself pointed backward, wired to magnetic hoods that locked around muzzles. Hull sensors blinded. Gravity flipped corridor by corridor, pinning marauders to ceilings while civilians floated gently to assembled rescue rigs. Negotiation lasted 9 seconds. Red Cathedra leader, we. Spectre node, no. A micropulse veiled them in inertial stasis. When the veil lifted, every insurgent lay cuffed in drift cocoons. Hostages were already sipping reoxygenated tea. Casualty count, 0. The spectacle cemented 2 truths in public psyche. Terran ethics were surgical, and their no carried cosmic authority. Admiral CRYH watched Seraph footage within a cell aboard Harbinger 1. His confinement lacked bars. Doors responded to his biometrics. Surgeries had removed lethal implants. but a promise kept him inside. He would not exit until Rourke discharged him. She visited the next morning. Cr bowed, a gesture of parody. You protected my people from their own shame. His voice rasped like rust on ice. Teach me to wash my hands. Rourke offered a small tablet preloaded with Terran reconstruction charters, blueprints for demobilizing warclades and repurposing shipyards into habitat forges. Start here, she said. Apology is theory until it feeds someone. Cr accepted and, in that moment, the Dominion's fate shifted from question to answer. The galaxy turned, slower now, like a patient waking after surgery. Whisper-class wings escorted relief convoys rather than strike arcs. Dominion husks retrofitted into arcs carrying seed vaults to barren moons. Arc Zero stationed itself beyond the halo rim, not as a sword but a lighthouse, projecting a silent ward against whatever else prowled extra-cosmic dark. Prime Neth Cell visited Earth, the first sitting Concord speaker to do so in 40 years. She toured the silent forge, witnessed drones weaving armor beside field hospitals, and spoke before a gathered crowd in Nairobi Orbital Array. I have seen the knives and the bombs born from the same furnace. Humanity frightens us because it refuses to pick only one. Perhaps that is what adulthood looks like. Broadcast translators stumbled over the word adulthood. Some languages had no mature form aside from death. Millions replayed the speech until the thought felt less incendiary, more instructional. Yet in deep voids beneath mapped space lanes, sensors caught echoes, shapes drifting too orderly to be dust, yet too cold for ships. Patterns like half-remembered constellations outside the galaxy's rim. Harbinger probes pinged them. Nothing pinged back. Still they moved, adjusting courses as though listening to vibrations humanity hadn't meant to make. Commander Rourke brought the notation to Kavinsky. We carved noise into silence, she said, but silence is never empty. Something else is out there, noticing. Kavinsky nodded. Then we teach the galaxy the last lesson, which is that even shadows can cooperate. The cosmic dusk beyond the halo rim had always looked serene from the inside, an ocean of velvet punctuated by familiar constellations. But serenity was the illusion of small horizons. Once Arc Zero began charting parallax drift in the intervoid, analysts noticed star specks rearranging in ways orbital mechanics could not explain, too rapid, too synchronized. As though someone on the far side of the dark were sliding celestial beads across an abacus older than every known galaxy. Commander Naomi Rourke convened her senior cadre in Harbinger One's atrium, a sphere of transparent alloy scribed with faint gravitational equations instead of ceiling panels. Suspended inside the sphere floated hololithic markers, white for Concord beacons, blue for Dominion resettlement arcs, and a widening fringe of amber motes, unidentified objects creeping along extragalactic approach vectors. They carried no drive signatures, no neutrino heat, only mathematically pristine trajectories that sliced through the cosmic background like compass lines on antique parchment. Lieutenant Colonel Aldo Zhu traced one amber mote with his fingertip. 74 objects now, ma'am. All co-moving at exactly 3/4 light speed relative to us. Same delta across the board. Which violates every rule of mass variance, Rourke murmured. A flotilla that tight should shear itself apart unless something keeps it in perfect accord. She pinched her brow. Or unless it's one thing wearing 74 shadows. Behind her, Admiral Cr, now garbed in unpainted alloy plainmail instead of Dominion crimson, watched silently. His conversion from warlord to collaborator had progressed quickly, yet tonight his eyes glimmered with the old martial instinct. If your shadows are scouts, he rumbled, their herald is close. Agreed, Rourke said. And whoever they are, they noticed the scar rift before we slammed it shut. Our null arrays lit a torch in the night. Zhu zoomed the projection. A crimson halo bloomed around the amber swarm. Earliest intercept in 15 standard days, assuming they stay subliminal. Too slow for an assault, too fast for diplomacy. Rourke drew a steadying breath. We break precedent. Open broadcast to the swarm, full-spectrum math constructs, no linguistic cargo. Let's see if they echo. 3 days later, across every active quantum relay, the Terran beacon blasted a simple message, a sequence of prime numbers delivered in alternating pulses of gravitonic kink and neutrino hush. The pattern ended with an Euclidean proof encoded in spin-state variations, an invitation to acknowledge common geometry. For 26 hours the cosmos answered with nothing but background hiss. Then Arc Zero's event veil fluttered. A return signal arrived, not from the amber swarm but from every point in local space simultaneously. Gravity waves so subtle even Harbinger's spectrometers tasted them as after ripples, yet arranged in perfect mirror symmetry to the Terran primes. Proof of reception. But the reply included a coda for sliding frequencies that formed a hyperpythagorean triple impossible under flat space-time. The shape only solved cleanly if embedded in 12 dimensions. Admiral Cr hissed a low breath. They speak higher rooms of the house. Rourke eyed her mathematics chief. Can we map that into null array topology? The chief gulped. We can approximate. But to speak fluently, we'd have to unshutter dimensional couplings we sealed after the Valkyries incident. Then we stand on the porch and wave. Rourke crossed to the comm dais. Draft a reply at dimensional delta 9 only, no door, just window. While Harbinger wrestled with cosmic grammar, the Concord convulsed with Deja Vu. Prime Neth Cell assembled an emergency caucus, this time including newly welcomed Dominion delegates, powder-gray uniforms. No weapons beyond ceremonial word knives dulled in public forging. Opposition blocs feared another unilateral action by Earth. Populist rags screeched that humans would provoke a second empire while the first still limped. Ambassador Lena Kavinsky faced them with the weary patience of a surgeon explaining triage for the 100th time. The unknown swarm is not our enemy. It is a variable. Preemptive panic will teach it only that we bite ourselves when nervous. She projected Arc 0 telemetry. Amber motes gliding along near perfect arcs, slowing fraction by fraction, as if observing, never jittering, never course-correcting. An intelligence this precise is at least curious, perhaps cautious. Let us answer with the same. A winged senator shrilled, and if curiosity wears teeth, then humans will bleed first, Kavinsky answered. We lit the torch, we carry it. The promise cost her nothing she wasn't prepared to pay. But across the hall, for the first time, applause outnumbered jeers. T-8 days to intercept, the swarm performed its first deviation. A synchronized sidereal step that placed every object an exact integer multiple of 299,792 kilometers closer to the galactic pole, light-second choreography. Analysts fed the shift through pattern miners and produced a chilling possibility. The formation now described a Klein rose, a mathematical curve representing impossible petals spiraling into themselves. The symbol had no concordance in Terran cultural banks, but Dominion archivists recognized it. Ancient Senvadi star maps had included a forbidden glyph called the Rose of Silence, marking voids where survey probes never returned. CR disclosed the lore to Rourke. Our seers claimed those voids were mouth-swallowing stars. We laughed, but laughter tastes old now. Rourke ran her thumb along the scar on her palm, a ritual reminder of first contact scars. Mouths speak. Mouths consume. If this is a throat clearing before conversation, we listen. If it's hunger, we still listen, just sharper. They call the Joint Task Force Concord Vigil. 8 Harbinger dreadnoughts, 12 Dominion refitted cruisers, and a flotilla of multi-species science barges rendezvoused at Lagrange Point S7, equidistant from the anticipated incursion. No gun ports glowed. All weapons remained slave to AI governors that required triple consent. 1 Terran, 1 ex-Dominion, 1 neutral Concord sigil. It was humanity's concession, a promise that no single paranoia could fire the first shot. Among the Vigil's support craft drifted a slender spindle newly birthed from Silent Forge yards, the Lighthouse Verity. Instead of cannons, it carried concentric rings of quantum larynges, devices designed to modulate space-time itself into voiced information. Its creator, Dr. Alarin Gwyn, likened it to teaching the universe to whistle. Verity took the Delta 9 reply draft, fractal spheres nested in 12 space harmonics, and sang it across the void. The transmission lasted 9 seconds and consumed more energy than old Earth's pre-fusion grid produced in a year. Silence followed. 3 hours later, the amber swarm rippled. 40 of the 74 shadows peeled off and accelerated, away from the galaxy as though satisfied. The remaining 34 slowed further, each shedding a halo of dark plasma that bloomed like ghost orchids before dissipating. Spectrum analysis suggested the halos were data exhalations, streams of encoded mass unraveling into decipherable geometry. Verity recorded every micron. Dr. Nguyen's voice trembled as she translated the first resolved glyphs. They're repeating our axioms, but they've appended a new declaration. Your house is loud. Quiet is life. CRYDH muttered. They ask us to hush our wars. Rourke smiled, a quick, sad curve. Then we're already negotiating. Yet negotiation can sour with a single panic. On the Vigil's flank, Crown Shield loyalists hiding in a refit frigate called Argent Proviso overrode the triple consent matrix, spooked by the swarm's unfurling halos. They spun up a spinal rail 3 seconds before internal counter-SOP safeties choked the charge. But the abort vented a plume of white-hot plasma bright enough to register as hostile ignition. Instantly, the 34 shadows contracted into needles, aligning tip-first toward the flotilla. All comms froze. Every ship's hull moaned as local space-time twisted, mass-lensing their silhouettes. For 13 heartbeats, Vigil stood on the cusp of annihilation. Commander Rourke broadcast wideband. Weapons fault. Not intent. Observe. We bleed ourselves first. And she did. Harbinger Dreadnought Quiet Providence swung broadside, vented its own port-side armor into vacuum, and jettisoned 3 warbays, scuttling unarmed pods that tumbled, exploded harmlessly, and painted the dark with violet caution flares. The Terran mea culpa signal. Concurrently, Dominion cruisers dumped their reactor heat sinks, bathing themselves in visible X-ray bloom, a sign of submissive exposure. The shadows held posture, still as prismatic knives. Then needles slackened, stretching back into petals. Space-time relaxed. Hull groans ceased. Within minutes, the halo blossoms resumed, twice as luminous as before. Dr. Nguyen exhaled shakily. Message securely updated. They say, error noted. Learning continues. Prime Neth Cell's hollow avatar flickered onto Vigil's bridge, throat fans flat with relief. Madness or miracle, Commander, you just apologized to something that swallows dimensions. And it accepted. Not a miracle, Rourke replied. Politeness. Verity and the swarm exchanged 21 iterations over the next 2 days. Each volley extended the shared lexicon. Topologies turned into verbs, decimal harmonics into emotional valence, quaternion phases into cultural pronouns. The alien presence, now labeled the Heliarn chorus after its preference for luminous floral shapes, revealed itself not as empire or fleet but as a maintenance choir, custodians of topological hygiene patrolling the void between galaxies. Sealing tears like the scar rift before raw chaos could seep through. Humanity's reckless null-array experiments had pinged their sensorium for the first time in eons, drawing them like medics to sirens. Their final statement emerged as a crown-shaped corona of soft gamma rays, translated aboard Verity. We mend edges. Light your torches with care. But we see you learn swiftly. Would you share the road? Rourke whispered, their offering mentorship. Around her, Dominion tech priests fell to knees. Concord delegates traded stunned looks. Dr. Nguyen openly wept. Engineering teams set to work drafting an answer. An orbital relay chain stretching from Arc 0 to Lighthouse Verity, co-tuned with Dominion psionic circuit lattice, combining Terran null-array mastery and Sinvati legacy math. They named the newborn network Dawnpath. When the chorus received Dawnpath's first hum, the 34 petals folded inward, collapsing into a single translucent orb the size of a small moon. The orb pulsed 3 times, then shed a filament of crystal vapor that wove through Dawnpath's anchors like a silver thread mating 2 fabrics. With that stitch complete, the orb blossomed again, no longer amber but iridescent, every hue shifting like morning across dew. Spectrography screamed with data. The filament bore encoded libraries, maintenance schemata for scar prevention, energy lattices that healed entropy scars, Starforge ethics older than carbon. Files too vast for light alone. They arrived as causal packages, rewriting local probability as easily as scribbling on parchment. Concord historians would later mark the timestamp as the dawn of the Quiet Compact, an accord rooted not in treaties but in probabilistic trust. For every veil humans might pierce, the chorus would teach a patch. For every patch the chorus performed, humanity would sing coordinates where lesser civilizations risked tearing holes. Because guardianship thrives in currencies heavier than coin. Months unraveled into a calm, studious glow. Dominion shipyards once meant for dread husks hammered out quill tenders, elegant courier craft bearing chorus phasic beacons to frontier science stations. Terran academies opened Heliarn faculties, blending extra-dimensional topology with philosophy of restraint. Concord legislators rewrote charter preambles to include a clause prime Nethcell pinned personally. Noise without purpose is cruelty. Arc 0, newly wetting its event veil with Dawnpath, drifted to the galactic South Pole and unfurled a web of microsingular anchors, knitting ragged space-time seams left by millennia of careless FTL jumps. The work was quiet, invisible to most eyes, but habitable planets near old hypercorridors noticed their tides stabilizing, quakes easing, auroras calming. They thanked the wind, unaware the wind wore Terran gloves. Among these successes, Crownshield's remnants faced tribunal. Rourke insisted on mercy, citing the doctrine do no tyranny. Many expected harsh reprisal. Instead, Crownshield engineers were offered apprenticeships under Dr. Nguyen, repurposing their restless ambition into refining Verity's larynges. Some accepted, humbled. Others refused. Slipping into the margins of a galaxy no longer built for grand conspiracies. Either way, the compact endured without blood. Yet the future carried ember threads of tension. In the dim lounges of outering stations, smugglers grumbled that quiet compact protocols slowed cargo runs. Mercenary guilds feared obsolescence. Who needs guns when stitches heal before blades swing? Children on frontier moons played Heliarn and Harbinger, arguing over who got to fix the pretend scar and who had to pretend rupture it, never once assigning a villain. Victories without villains made some adults uneasy. They forgot stories could end in mutual progress. Ambassador Kavinsky addressed that unease in a sector-wide broadcast recorded before the glass steps of New Tanzania. She stood beside Admiral CRYDH, both wearing work garb stained by morning labor on a habitat forge. Peace is not the absence of noise, she said, voice carried on global airwave. It is the art of tuning noise into harmony. We forge knives because we feared the dark. Now we forge needles to sew the dark when it tears. If that frightens you, remember, a garment mended is stronger at the seam. Across the dome net, billions paused scrolling. Hashtag stronger at the seam trended for 17 straight hours. 1 year after first contact with the chorus, Dawnpath detected its first remote distress note, a microscar blooming in the dwarf galaxy Antlia 2, far beyond Terran's sovereign reach. The compact mobilized a mixed relief column, Dominion quill tenders, Terran whisper escorts, Concord hospital barges, and a single chorus pedal acting as guide. No border disputes, no wrangling over salvage rights, just technicians racing a rip in reality. As the column slipped into superluminous flight, Commander Naomi Rourke watched from Harbinger 1's observation cradle. Although Zhu drifted beside her, sipping gravity-stilled coffee. Feels weird, he said, saving worlds we've never met. You say that like it's a new hobby. Zhu laughed softly. It used to be revenge adjacent. Now it's just maintenance. Rourke considered the shining thread of dawn path stretching beyond visible spectrum. We burn bright enough to melt our chains. Now we glow softer so others can see. She pressed her palm to the glass, remembering every scar, personal, planetary, dimensional. They were still there, of course. Scar tissue never vanishes. But scars become stories, and stories become warnings whispered forward. Far below, Earth turned on its axis, blue and green, not silent but not screaming either. Across its night side, cities pulsed like embers. Across its day side, oceans glittered where war machines once tested hydrogen fire. Somewhere children chased each other with cardboard whisper wings, shouting equations they barely understood, believing absolutely that quiet was not the opposite of loud, but the measure of care one took before speaking. Rourke smiled. The galaxy listened now. It listened because silence, wielded wisely, could thunder louder than guns. And in the hush between stars, the universe mended, one seam, one song, one shared road at a time.